I remember the exact moment it started. The first time my son Michael looked at me like I was losing my mind. It was over something so trivial, so inconsequential that most people would have forgotten it within minutes. I had misplaced my reading glasses, the ones I'd owned for nearly 15 years. They weren't particularly expensive, just a simple tortoiseshell pair I'd bought after my husband Gerald passed away. But they were mine, and more importantly, I knew exactly where I'd left them, on the kitchen counter beside the fruit bowl. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. "They're not there, Mom," Michael said with a sigh, not even bothering to glance up from his phone. "You probably left them somewhere and forgot." "I didn't forget," I insisted, my voice sounding surprisingly firm even to my own ears. "They were right here beside the fruit bowl when I went to lie down for my afternoon nap." His wife, Vanessa, exchanged a look with him. That look, the one that silently communicated volumes between them. A mixture of concern, exhaustion, and something else I couldn't quite place. Pity, perhaps? Or was it amusement? "Mom, I'll help you look for them later," Michael said, finally putting down his phone. "Maybe you should sit down. You seem a bit confused." There it was, that word, confused. Like I was some doddering old woman who couldn't tell Tuesday from Saturday. I was 72, not ancient. I'd worked as a high school mathematics teacher for 40 years before retiring. I'd raised 2 children largely on my own, after Gerald's heart attack took him when the kids were still in elementary school. I'd managed our finances, our home, our lives without missing a beat. I'd put both my children through college without a penny of debt. My mind was as sharp as it had ever been. Yet here was my son, my own flesh and blood, speaking to me like I was a child, and the worst part? I actually started to doubt myself. Maybe I had misplaced them. Maybe my memory was playing tricks on me. The seed of uncertainty had been planted. It wasn't until 3 days later that I found my glasses tucked away in the guest bathroom drawer, a place I never would have put them. I confronted Michael about it, but he just shrugged and said, "See? You did misplace them. It happens to everyone, Mom, especially as we get older." I let it go. What else could I do? Make a scene over a pair of reading glasses? But that was just the beginning. Little things started disappearing. My address book, the remote control, the pearl earrings Gerald had given me on our 20th anniversary. Each time, the implication was the same. I was losing track of things because I was losing my grip on reality, but I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. Then came the incident with the bank statement. I'd always managed my own finances, and I noticed a discrepancy. $5,000 had been withdrawn from my savings account. A withdrawal I certainly hadn't made. "Michael," I said, calling him immediately, "there's something wrong with my bank statement. Can you come over?" He arrived an hour later, Vanessa in tow, both of them wearing identical expressions of practiced patience. "Look," I said, pointing to the statement. "Someone withdrew $5,000 on the 17th, but it wasn't me." Michael studied the paper, then gave me that look again. "Mom, don't you remember? You took that money out to help with Lily's college expenses." Lily was my granddaughter, Michael and Vanessa's only child. She'd just started her freshman year at Northwestern. "I never did that," I insisted, my heart beginning to race. I would remember withdrawing $5,000. "We were right here with you," Vanessa added, her voice dripping with a sweetness that made my teeth ache. "You insisted on contributing to her education. It was very generous of you." I stared at them both, searching their faces for any sign of deception. Had I really done this? Was my memory truly failing me? I'd been planning to help with Lily's education, of course, but I'd intended to set up a proper trust, not just hand over cash. "You made us promise not to tell Lily," Michael added. You wanted it to be a surprise for when she graduates. That didn't sound like me at all. I'd always believed in transparency when it came to financial matters. Why would I suddenly start making anonymous donations? But there they were, both of them looking at me with such conviction, such sincerity. And the worst part? I started to believe them. I suppose I could have forgotten, I said slowly, hating the tremor in my voice. It's okay, Mom, Michael said, squeezing my shoulder. It happens. Maybe we should talk about getting you some help around the house, just to keep an eye on things. And there it was, the first suggestion that I couldn't take care of myself anymore. The thin edge of the wedge that would eventually pry me from my independence. That night, as I lay awake in the bed I once shared with Gerald, I mentally retraced my steps over the past few weeks. The glasses, the address book, the remote, the earrings. And now $5,000. It was too much, too suspicious. Was I really losing my mind, or was something more sinister at play? I decided to set a trap. If someone in my family was gaslighting me, and yes, I knew the term. I'd read about it in a psychology book years ago. I needed proof. I needed to catch them in the act. The next morning, I called my daughter Jennifer, who lived across the country in Seattle. Jennifer and I had always been close, more like friends than mother and daughter. She was the practical one, the level-headed one. Michael had always been more impulsive, more emotional, like his father. Jenny, I said when she answered, I need you to do something for me, but you can't tell anyone. Not even Dave. Dave was her husband of 15 years. Mom? What's wrong? You sound strange. I'm fine, I assured her. I just need a favor. Can you check my bank account online? I gave you access years ago, remember? For emergencies. Yes, of course. What am I looking for? Just tell me if there have been any unusual withdrawals or transfers in the past month. There was a pause, the sound of typing. Actually, yes, there was a $5,000 withdrawal about 2 weeks ago. And, Mom, there's another one pending for tomorrow. Another $5,000. My blood ran cold. I hadn't scheduled any such withdrawal. Mom, are you there? I'm here, I said quietly. Jenny, I didn't make those withdrawals. What? But then who? I don't know yet, I said, cutting her off. But I intend to find out. Can you do one more thing for me? Call the bank and cancel that pending withdrawal. Say you're concerned about fraud. Of course, I'll do it right now. But Mom, should I come out there? If someone's stealing from you— No, I said firmly. Not yet. I need to handle this myself first. But stay by the phone. I may need you again soon. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long gone cold. My mind was racing, putting together pieces of a puzzle I'd been too blind or too trusting to see before. Michael and Vanessa had been spending more time with me lately. They'd offered to help with my bills, my grocery shopping, my doctor's appointments. They'd suggested I might be happier in a community where I could be with people my own age. They'd even brought up power of attorney. Just in case something happens, Mom. And all the while, things kept disappearing. My memory kept being called into question. My confidence kept being eroded. Well, no more. I called my old friend Eleanor. That afternoon, we'd taught together for 30 years before both retiring, and she'd always been the most organized person I knew. Eleanor, do you still have that small camera you used for birdwatching? The one you could set up and leave running? The trail cam? Sure. Robert hasn't used it since his hip started acting up. Why? Taking up ornithology in your golden years? I laughed. Not exactly. Can I borrow it? And can you show me how to set it up? Eleanor didn't ask questions. That's what I loved about her. She just showed up an hour later with the camera and gave me a quick tutorial. It's motion activated, she explained. Battery lasts about a week. Video clips are stored on this memory card. Simple as pie. I thanked her and promised to return it soon. Then I waited until Michael and Vanessa had gone home before setting it up in my living room, positioned with a clear view of my desk where I kept my financial documents. Then I went to bed and tried to sleep, knowing I'd set events in motion that could either save my sanity or destroy my family. The next morning, I received a call from Jennifer. "Mom, I stopped the withdrawal. The bank said they'll investigate the previous one too. But there's something else." My heart sank. "What is it?" The withdrawal was scheduled to go to an account in Michael's name. A new account, opened just a month ago. I closed my eyes, a wave of nausea washing over me. So it was true. My own son was stealing from me while simultaneously trying to convince me I was losing my mind. "Mom, are you okay?" "No," I answered honestly. "But I will be. Thank you, Jenny. I'll call you soon." I hung up and made myself a cup of strong tea, fortifying myself for what came next. Then I called Michael. "Mom, everything okay?" "Actually, no," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been going through my financial records, and there seems to be a serious problem. I need you to come over right away." "What kind of problem?" His voice had an edge to it now. "I'd rather discuss it in person. How soon can you be here?" Hesitated. "I'll need to wrap up a few things at work. Maybe in a couple of hours?" "Perfect," I said. "I'll see you then." I spent those 2 hours carefully reviewing my bank statements for the past 6 months. With a clearer head and a growing sense of anger, I noticed other suspicious transactions. Smaller withdrawals that I'd overlooked before, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. The amount totaled nearly $20,000. I also checked the camera Eleanor had lent me. Nothing had happened overnight, of course, but I made sure it was still running and properly positioned. Then I laid out all my financial documents on the desk, including the statement showing the canceled $5,000 withdrawal, the one scheduled to go into Michael's new account. At precisely 11:30, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and went to answer it. Michael stood on my porch, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Vanessa wasn't with him, which surprised me. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "We can talk in the living room." He followed me silently, glancing around as if seeing my home for the first time. I gestured for him to sit on the sofa while I took the armchair opposite, the desk with all my financial papers just visible from where he sat. "So, what's this about, Mom? You sounded upset on the phone." I looked at my son, my only son, whom I'd raised with all the love and care I possessed, and felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. "Money has been disappearing from my accounts," I said bluntly. "Large sums, and I'm not the one taking it." His face paled slightly, but he maintained a neutral expression. "What do you mean? Have you been hacked or something?" "No, Michael. Not hacked. Stolen from. By family." His eyes widened in what appeared to be genuine shock. "Mom, you can't possibly think—" "I don't think. I know," I interrupted. The most recent attempted withdrawal, another $5,000, was set to go directly into a new account in your name. The color drained completely from his face now. That's not— There must be some mistake." "The only mistake," I said, my voice, colder than I'd ever heard it, "was thinking you could gaslight me into believing I was losing my mind while you systematically robbed me blind." "Gaslight?" he sputtered. "Mom, I would never—" My glasses that mysteriously disappeared and ended up in a place I'd never put them. My address book, my remote, my pearl earrings, all things you or Vanessa moved to make me doubt my memory, to make me believe I was becoming senile, to soften me up for the suggestion that I needed help around the house, that I needed a power of attorney, that I should consider moving into a community. Michael stood abruptly. "This is insane. You're not well, Mom. You need help. Sit down," I commanded, with all the authority of my 40 years of teaching. To my surprise, he obeyed instantly, like the schoolboy he once was. "I am perfectly well," I continued. "And I have proof. Jennifer called the bank yesterday. She stopped the withdrawal and reported it as fraud. The bank is investigating now." "Jennifer?" His voice cracked. "You involved Jennifer in this delusion?" "It's not a delusion, Michael. It's theft. And elder abuse. Both are crimes. Serious ones." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of his father that it made my heart ache despite everything. "Mom, please, let me explain. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I asked, giving him enough rope to hang himself. "Explain how $20,000 has vanished from my accounts in the past 6 months. Explain why you were about to take another $5,000. Yesterday. Explain why you've been trying to convince me I'm losing my mind." He looked down at his hands, which were trembling slightly. "It was temporary," he whispered. "I was going to pay it all back, I swear. We're in a bad place right now. The business is struggling. Lily's tuition is killing us. Vanessa's parents need help with their medical bills. I didn't know what else to do." I stared at him, trying to reconcile this desperate man with the little boy who once brought me dandelions from the yard and called them sunshine flowers. "So you decided to steal from me? Your own mother? And not just steal, but manipulate me into thinking I was becoming senile so I wouldn't notice?" He winced at the harshness of my words. "When you put it like that, there's no other way to put it," I snapped. "That's exactly what you did." "I was desperate," he repeated, as if that excused everything. "And Vanessa thought," I cut him off. "Vanessa thought what? That I was an easy mark? That if you got me to doubt myself enough, you could take everything I have?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I stood up, feeling taller and stronger than I had in months. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to return every penny you took from me, every single cent, and you're going to do it today." "Mom, I can't. We don't have it anymore. It's gone. Paid to creditors, to the school, to doctors. Then you'll take out a loan, you'll sell something, you'll figure it out. Because if you don't, I'm calling the police and pressing charges." He looked up at me, shocked. "You wouldn't." "Try me," I said, my voice steel. "I've already spoken with a lawyer. I have documentation of every withdrawal. I have Jennifer as a witness to the attempted fraud, and I have this." I walked over to the camera Eleanor had lent me, which was still recording our conversation. Michael's face, when he realized what it was, crumpled like wet paper. "You've been recording me?" "I had to protect myself," I said simply. "Since my own son wasn't going to do it." The silence that followed was deafening. Michael sat there, shoulders slumped, looking more defeated than I'd ever seen him. Part of me, the mother part, wanted to go to him, to comfort him as I had when he was small. But the other part, the woman who'd been betrayed, manipulated, and stolen from, held me back. "I'll get the money," he finally said, his voice hollow. "Somehow. I'll make it right." "Yes, you will," I agreed. "And until then, I want the keys to my house back. I'll be changing the locks anyway, but I want them back now." Without a word, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his key ring, removing the key I'd given him years ago. For emergencies, I'd told him then. For my protection. The irony wasn't lost on me. As he placed the key on the coffee table between us, he looked up at me, his eyes swimming with tears. "I'm sorry, Mom. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am." I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to forgive, wasn't even sure if I ever would be. The depth of his betrayal was still settling in, like water seeping through stone. "You can go now," I said, turning away from him. "I expect the full amount returned within a week. After that, we'll talk about where we go from here." He rose slowly, looking older than his 44 years. "What will you tell Jennifer? And Lily?" The truth, I said without hesitation. I'm done with lies in this family. All of them. He nodded, once, then walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. I do love you, Mom. Despite everything. I know you probably don't believe that right now, but it's true. I said nothing, and after a moment, he left, closing the door quietly. Behind him, I stood in my living room, alone but unbowed. The camera was still recording, capturing my solitary figure in the afternoon light. I walked over and turned it off, removing the memory card. This would be evidence if I needed it, but I prayed it wouldn't come to that. Then I picked up the phone to call Jennifer. She needed to know what had happened, and I needed to start planning for what came next. Because while I'd won this battle, I knew the war was far from over. Michael and Vanessa wouldn't surrender so easily, not with so much money at stake, and I was ready. They thought I was a confused old woman they could manipulate and dismiss. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. I thought about Gerald then, about what he would say if he could see me now. He'd probably give me that crooked smile of his and say, "Show 'em what you're made of, Ellie." And that's exactly what I intended to do, because I wasn't just fighting for my money anymore. I was fighting for my dignity, my autonomy, my truth, and I would win, no matter what it took. The next few days passed in a strange, suspended state. I found myself jumping at every sound, checking the locks twice before bed, and keeping Eleanor's camera running constantly. Jennifer called daily, sometimes twice, her voice tight with worry and barely contained fury. "Mom, I still think I should. Fly out there," she insisted during our third call that week. "Not yet," I told her, though I was beginning to waver. The house felt too big, too empty, too vulnerable. "Let's see if Michael returns the money first. Then we can decide our next steps. And if he doesn't?" I looked at the folder on my kitchen table, the one containing all my financial documents, police department contact information, and the name of the lawyer Jennifer had researched for me. Then we proceed as planned. 4 days after our confrontation, Michael texted me. Texted, not called, like a coward hiding behind technology. "Can we meet tomorrow? I have part of the money." Part of it, not all. My fingers hovered over the phone screen before I replied. "My house. 10 a.m. Bring Vanessa." His response came quickly. "Just me." "No, both of you. This involves both of you." There was a long pause before 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally. "Okay." I spent that evening preparing. I brewed a pot of strong coffee, arranged my financial documents in meticulous order, and placed 3 cups on the coffee table in the living room, a gesture of civility that felt absurd under the circumstances. The camera was positioned discreetly on the bookshelf, its lens aimed at the sofa where they would sit. At precisely 10 a.m. the doorbell rang. When I opened it, I found Michael standing there alone, his face drawn and pale. "Where's Vanessa?" I asked, not moving to let him in. "She's in the car," he said, glancing nervously over his shoulder. She didn't think her presence would help matters." "This isn't a negotiation," I said firmly. "Either she comes in too, or you can both leave and we'll handle this through legal channels." He stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked back to their SUV, which was parked in my driveway. I watched as he leaned into the passenger window and appeared to argue with Vanessa. Her hand gestures were animated, her expression furious even from a distance. Finally, she threw open the car door and stepped out, smoothing her expensive blouse and flipping her perfectly highlighted hair over one shoulder. I waited in the doorway, my posture straight, my face impassive. Years of handling unruly teenagers had taught me that composure was power. As they approached, I noticed Michael clutching a white envelope. That would be the money, or some of it at least. "Eleanor," Vanessa said stiffly when they reached the door, using my first name as she always did, despite my repeated requests over the years for her to call me Mom or even Mrs. Reynolds. It was a small rebellion, her way of diminishing me. Vanessa, I replied coolly. Come in. I led them to the living room, gesturing for them to sit on the sofa across from my armchair. Neither reached for the coffee I'd prepared. You said you have part of the money, I began, seeing no reason to waste time on pleasantries. Michael nodded and handed me the envelope. It's $8,000. It's all we could pull together on such short notice. I opened the envelope and counted the bills, all hundreds, neatly stacked. It was indeed $8,000, less than half of what they'd taken. And the rest? I asked, tucking the envelope into my cardigan pocket. We're working on it, Michael said quickly. I've applied for a personal loan, and we're considering selling Vanessa's car. I glanced at Vanessa, whose knuckles had turned white where she gripped her designer handbag. Her face was a mask of barely contained resentment. That seems wise, I said, addressing her directly. That BMW has always seemed rather excessive for a part-time real estate agent. Her eyes flashed. I need to project a certain image in my profession. Your clients expect you not to be financing your lifestyle by stealing from an elderly widow, I interrupted, allowing my anger to show for the first time. Or at least they would if they knew. Mom, Michael said, his voice pleading, we've admitted we were wrong. We're trying to make it right. Are you? I looked. Between them. Because all I see is reluctant partial restitution and a wife who can't even look me in the eye. Vanessa stiffened but said nothing, her gaze fixed on some point over my left shoulder. There's more we need to discuss, I continued. Beyond the money. What do you mean? Michael asked warily. I mean the gaslighting, the manipulation, the deliberate attempts to make me question my own sanity so you could take advantage of me. I kept my voice calm, methodical. That wasn't just theft, Michael. That was abuse. He flinched as if I'd struck him. It wasn't like that. No? Then what? Was it like? Explain it to me. Help me understand how my son could do something so cruel to his own mother. The room fell silent. In the distance, I could hear the ticking of the grandfather clock Gerald had bought for our 10th anniversary. It had marked the seconds of our lives together, the good years and the hard ones, the births of our children, his death, my solitary decades after. Now it was marking this moment too, this fracture in what remained of my family. It was Vanessa's idea, Michael finally said, his voice so low I almost didn't hear him. Beside him, Vanessa sucked in a sharp breath. Don't you dare put this all on me, she hissed. You agreed to everything. After you pushed and pushed, he shot back, turning to face her. You're the one who said she had too much money just sitting there. You're the one who said she'd never miss it if we were careful. You're the one who came up with the whole plan to make her think she was losing it. I watched this marital implosion with a curious detachment. Part of me, a small, vindictive part I wasn't proud of, felt satisfaction seeing them turn on each other. But mostly I felt deeply, profoundly sad. Both of you are responsible, I said quietly. Both of you made these choices. They stopped, arguing, and looked at me, seemingly surprised to find me still in the room. Here's what's going to happen now, I continued. You will return the remaining $12,000 within 2 weeks. If you don't, I will file charges for elder abuse and financial exploitation. I've already spoken with Detective Harmon at the police department, and she assures me they take these cases very seriously. Michael's face paled. Mom, please, my career... You should have thought of that before, I cut him off. Actions have consequences, Michael. That's something I taught you when you were 5 years old. Apparently, it didn't stick. And after we return the money? Vanessa asked, her voice cold. What then? Then we decide how, or if, we move forward as a family. Michael leaned forward, his eyes pleading. Mom, I know what we did was terrible, unforgivable. But I'm still your son. She's still your daughter-in-law. Lily is still your granddaughter. I felt a pang at the mention of Lily. Sweet, earnest Lily, away at college, completely unaware of the ugly drama unfolding in her family. She didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of her parents' greed and my hurt. Lily has nothing to do with this, I said firmly. My relationship with her remains unchanged. I paused, choosing my next words carefully. As for the two of you, that will depend on many factors, not just the return of the money, but genuine remorse, accountability, and most importantly, radical honesty from this point forward. Honesty about what? Vanessa asked warily. Everything. Starting with why you did this in the first place, I fixed my gaze on her. And not the surface reason, not just financial pressure. I want to know the real reason. Why target me this way? Why not just ask for help if you needed it? Vanessa looked away, her jaw tightening. It was Michael who finally answered. We did ask, he said softly. 2 years ago, when my business was first struggling. We came to you for a loan to get through the rough patch. But you said no. You said we needed to live within our means and not rely on bailouts. I remembered that conversation well. They'd wanted $50,000 to expand the business, but had been vague about the details. My teacher's instinct had sensed the evasion, the half-truths. I said no to an unstructured loan with no clear repayment plan, I corrected. I offered to help you develop a proper business strategy instead. You declined. Because it wasn't about the business, Vanessa snapped, finally meeting my eyes. It was about the debt, the credit cards, the second mortgage. We were drowning, and you sat there with your perfect financial record and you're paid off. House and your substantial savings, lecturing us about living within our means. I absorbed this outburst calmly. So this was revenge? Punishment for my refusal? Not revenge, Michael said quickly. Desperation. We told ourselves it was temporary, that we'd pay it back before you even noticed. But then it became so easy, Vanessa added, something ugly creeping into her expression. You trusted Michael with everything, your accounts, your paperwork, all of it. And when we realized how simple it would be to just adjust your perception a little, make you doubt yourself, it seemed like the perfect solution. The cold calculation in her voice chilled me to the bone. This wasn't just opportunistic theft. This was premeditated, sustained psychological warfare against me. Against a woman who had only ever shown them kindness and support. Get out, I said suddenly, rising from my chair. Get out of my house. Now. They both stared at me, startled by the abrupt shift. Mom, Michael began. I said, get out. You have 2 weeks to return the rest of the money. After that, either I see all of it, or I see you in court. Those are your only options. Vanessa stood immediately, almost eagerly, but Michael remained seated, looking up at me with devastated eyes. Please, he whispered, don't do this. You did this, Michael? Not me. Now leave. Finally, he stood and followed Vanessa to the door. As they stepped outside, he turned back one last time. What should I tell Lily? She'll want to visit you during her break next month. Tell her I can't wait to see her, I said. And nothing else. If you drag her into this mess, if you try to turn her against me with lies, I won't, he interrupted. I swear. I closed the door without another word, then leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. The confrontation had drained me completely, leaving nothing but a hollow ache where my anger had been. I made my way back to the living room and turned off the camera. More evidence, more proof of their schemes and admissions. But what good was proof when the damage was already done? When my own son had looked me in the eye and admitted to deliberately manipulating my reality for his own gain? I called Jennifer immediately. They came, I said when she answered. They brought $8,000. That's not enough, she replied instantly. Not nearly enough. I know. I gave them 2 weeks for the rest. And if they don't deliver, then I press Charges, like we discussed. There was a pause on the line. Mom, are you okay? Really okay? I considered lying, saying I was fine, but something in my daughter's voice, genuine concern, not condescension, broke through my defenses. No, I admitted, my voice cracking. I'm not okay, Jenny. I thought I could handle this, but sitting across from them, hearing them justify what they did to me, it was worse than I imagined. I'm booking a flight right now, she said, and I could hear keyboard clicks in the background. I'll be there tomorrow. This time I didn't refuse. Thank you, I whispered. After hanging up, I walked through my quiet house, touching the familiar surfaces, the banister Gerald had installed, the quilt I'd made when the children were small, the family photos that suddenly seemed to belong to some other, happier life. In each room, memories swirled. Michael learning to read at the kitchen table, Jennifer practicing dance routines in the living room, the sound of children's laughter echoing through these halls. Had it all been an illusion? The loving family I thought I'd built? No, I decided as I made myself a cup of tea. Not all of it. Jennifer's love was real. Her concern, her support. These were genuine. And Lily, innocent Lily, still loved her grandmother without complication or agenda. As for Michael, I didn't know anymore. Had there ever been real love there, or merely obligation? And if there had been love once, could it ever be rebuilt after such a profound betrayal? These were questions without easy answers. Questions I would need to face in the coming days and weeks. For now, though, I focused on what I could control. I called my bank and arranged to close all my existing accounts and open new ones, accounts Michael would have no access to. I contacted a locksmith to change all the locks and install a security system. I called my lawyer and updated him on the situation. And then I sat down at my desk and began writing, a detailed account of everything that had happened, from the first missing glasses to today's confrontation. I wrote it all down in my neat teacher's handwriting, page after page of painful truth. When I finished, I sealed the pages in an envelope and addressed it to Detective Harmon with a note. To be opened only if necessary. I hoped it wouldn't be necessary. I hoped Michael and Vanessa would make the right choice, return the money, and begin the long, difficult process of earning back my trust. I hoped this story would have, if not a happy ending, at least one with some measure of healing. But I was prepared if it didn't, because if my son and his wife had taught me anything through this ordeal, it was the importance of seeing clearly, even when the truth was painful, of standing firm, even when it meant standing alone, of fighting back, even when your opponents thought you too old, too weak, too confused to mount a defense. They had underestimated me once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. As night fell, I placed the envelope in my safe, set the security system, and went to bed, strangely at peace, despite everything. Tomorrow, Jennifer would arrive. Tomorrow, we would begin figuring out what came next. Tomorrow, I would be stronger, wiser, more prepared. Tonight, though, I allowed myself to grieve. For the son I thought I knew. For the family I thought I had. For the trust that had been shattered beyond repair. And as I drifted off to sleep, I found myself wondering what else might have been hidden from me all these years. What other deceptions might be lurking beneath the surface of my carefully constructed life? And most troublingly, who else might have been involved in this conspiracy to steal not just my money, but my very sense of reality? These questions followed me into uneasy dreams, where faces shifted and changed, and nothing was quite as it seemed. Jennifer arrived the next afternoon, striding through the airport terminal with that purposeful walk she'd had since childhood. At 41, she looked more like me than ever, the same determined chin, the same sharp eyes that missed nothing. When she spotted me waiting, she dropped her carry-on and enveloped me in a fierce hug. I'm so sorry, she whispered against my hair. I should have been watching more closely. This isn't your fault, I said firmly, pulling back to look at her. Don't take that on. She picked up her bag, looping her arm through mine as we walked toward the parking lot. Have you heard anything from them today? Not a word, but I wasn't expecting to. In the car, Jennifer studied my profile as I drove. You look tired, Mom. I am tired, I admitted. But I'm also angry, and the anger is winning. She nodded, understanding without judgment. That was always Jennifer's way, to accept what was without trying to fix or change it. Unlike Michael, who saw every problem as something to be solved, preferably quickly and with minimal fuss. It made him a good businessman, but a terrible listener. So what's our next move? She asked as we pulled into my driveway. I smiled despite everything. Our, is it? You're stuck. With me now? At least until this is resolved. Inside, I showed Jennifer the camera setup, the financial documents, the recordings I'd made. She absorbed it all with her lawyer's mind, systematic, detail-oriented, looking for patterns and weaknesses. This is solid, she said finally. If it comes to legal action, we have more than enough. That's not what I want, I reminded her. I know, but it's good to be prepared. We spent the evening making dinner together, deliberately avoiding the heavier topics as we chopped vegetables and stirred sauces. It felt almost normal, almost like the times before Gerald died, before the children moved away, before my son decided I was nothing more than an obstacle to his financial security. Dave sends his love, Jennifer said as we sat down, to eat. He wanted to come too, but someone had to stay with the kids. They're good boys, I said, thinking of my grandsons, 10 and 12 now, growing so fast. You've raised them well. We've tried, she said, then hesitated. Mom, what are you going to tell them about all this? About Michael? I set down my fork. I haven't decided yet. They're old enough to understand that adults sometimes make terrible mistakes, but I don't want to poison their relationship with their uncle. Even after what he did? Especially after what he did. I sighed. Family is complicated, Jenny. No one is all good or all bad. Not even Michael. She looked skeptical but didn't argue. After dinner, we moved to the living room with cups of tea. Jennifer curled up on the sofa like she used to as a teenager, long legs tucked beneath her. Tell me something, she said suddenly. Did you ever suspect? Before the money started disappearing, I mean. Did you ever feel like Michael and Vanessa were, I don't know, not quite right? I considered the question carefully. There were moments, I admitted. Times when Vanessa would look at me with this calculation in her eyes, or when Michael would be too quick to agree with her criticisms of me. But I dismissed it as normal in-law tension. I never imagined they'd go this far. I always thought she was bad for him, Jennifer said, a hint of the old sibling rivalry creeping into her voice. From the first time he brought her home, so polished, so perfect, but there was something cold underneath. Dad saw it too. This surprised me. Gerald never said anything. He wouldn't. He knew how much it meant to you that we all get along, but he told me once, that girl's got ice where her heart should be. And he was right. I thought about Vanessa, her designer clothes, her carefully curated social media presence, her constant quest for status and appearances. Had I been blind to her true nature all these years? Or had I seen it and chosen to ignore it for Michael's sake? I failed him, I said softly. Michael. I should have been stricter when he was young, more firm about consequences. Mom, stop. Jennifer's voice was sharp. Michael is a grown man who made his own choices, bad ones. You don't get to take responsibility. For that? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text. I picked it up, expecting it to be from Eleanor checking in. Instead, I saw Lily's name on the screen. "It's Lily," I told Jennifer, my pulse quickening. "Michael's daughter." "What does she say?" I opened the message. "Hi, Grandma, can I call you? Need to talk about something important." I showed Jennifer the text. She frowned. "Do you think Michael told her?" "I don't know." I typed back quickly. "Of course, sweetheart. Anytime." Almost immediately my phone rang. I answered, putting it on speaker so Jennifer could hear. "Grandma?" Lily's voice came through, sounding smaller and younger than her 19 years. "I'm here, darling. And your Aunt Jennifer is with me, too." "Oh, hi, Aunt Jen." There was a pause. I need to ask you both something, and I need you to be totally honest with me." I exchanged a glance with Jennifer. "Of course," I said. "What is it? Is Dad stealing from you, Grandma?" The bluntness of the question took my breath away. I hesitated, torn between protecting her and telling the truth. "Why would you ask that?" Jennifer jumped in, giving me time to collect myself. "Because I overheard Mom on the phone last night. She was freaking out, saying they needed to fix this mess and get the rest of the money before she ruins everything. And then she said something about how they never should have touched Eleanor's accounts in the first place." Lily's voice trembled. "I'm not stupid. I know what that means." I closed my eyes, a fresh wave of anger washing over me. Not just at what they'd done to me, but at their carelessness, their stupidity in exposing Lily to this ugliness. "Yes," I said finally. "Your father and mother have taken money from my accounts without permission. We're working to resolve it." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "How much?" Lily finally asked. "That's not something you need to," Jennifer began, but Lily cut her off. "How much, Grandma? Please, I need to know." I sighed. "About $20,000 so far." Lily made a small, hurt sound. Is that what the check was for? The one they sent to the university last month? $5,000? "Probably," I said gently. "Was it unexpected?" "They said it was from a college fund you'd set up for me years ago. That it had finally matured." Her voice hardened. "But that was a lie, wasn't it? It was your money. Money they stole from you." I didn't answer directly. "Lily, where are you right now? Are you at school?" "I'm in my dorm room. My roommate's gone for the weekend." "Good. Listen to me carefully. This situation is between your father, your mother, and me. You don't need to be involved." "But I am involved," she protested. "They used me as an excuse to steal from you. They paid my tuition with stolen money." Jennifer leaned closer to the phone. "Lily, this isn't your fault. Not any of it." "I know that," she said, her voice suddenly stronger. "But I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen either. I'm coming home, next weekend. I've already booked the flight." "Sweetheart, that's not necessary," I began. "It is necessary. I need to see you. And I need to confront them." Her voice broke. A little. "I can't believe they did this to you. How could they think it was okay to treat you like this? After everything you've done for our family?" I couldn't answer. The lump in my throat was too large, the emotions too raw. "We'll see you next weekend then," Jennifer said, taking over when she saw I couldn't speak. "Text us your flight details, okay?" "I will." "And Grandma, I love you so much. I love you too, sweetheart. Always." After we hung up, I sat motionless, the phone still clutched in my hand. Jennifer watched me carefully. "She's so young," I finally said. "Too young to be dealing with this kind of betrayal." "She's stronger than you think," Jennifer replied. "Besides, she deserves to know the truth, especially if they've been using her education as their excuse." I nodded slowly. "You're right. I just wish we could have protected her from it somehow. Some things can't be fixed, Mom. They can only be faced." That night I slept better than I had in weeks, knowing Jennifer was just down the hall. But morning brought fresh complications. A text from Michael. Need to meet. Urgent. Just us. I showed it to Jennifer over breakfast. What do you think? She frowned. I think he knows Lily found out and he's panicking. But I don't like the just us part. I'm coming with you. He won't talk if you're there. Then he doesn't talk. I'm not leaving you alone with him, not after what he's pulled. In the end, we compromised. I agreed to meet Michael at a coffee shop, a public place, neutral ground, while Jennifer sat at a table nearby, close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough that Michael might still open up. He was already waiting when we arrived, hunched over a steaming cup, his face drawn and haggard. When he spotted Jennifer, his expression darkened further. I said just us, he said as I sat down across from him. Jennifer's here for support, I replied calmly. She's not going anywhere. He glanced over at her table, then back at me, lowering his voice. Lily called me last night. She was hysterical, accusing us of stealing from you. She said she's coming home next weekend to deal with this. What did you tell her? The truth, I said simply. When she asked, I didn't lie. You had no right, he hissed, leaning forward. She's my daughter, my child. And I'm your mother, I reminded him, meeting his gaze steadily. Yet that didn't stop you from betraying me in the worst possible way. He flinched as if I'd slapped him. That's different. Is it? Why? Because I'm old? Because you think I'm losing my faculties? Or because you simply decided my money would be better off in your hands than mine? He didn't answer, his eyes fixed on the table between us. Lily deserves the truth, I continued more softly. She's an adult now, Michael. Not a child to be sheltered and deceived. She'll never forgive us, he whispered. Vanessa is beside herself. She's talking about leaving town before Lily gets here. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Running away from your own daughter rather than facing what you've done? Is that really the example you want to set? You don't understand, he said, a note of desperation creeping into his voice. It's complicated. There's more to this than you know. Then explain it to me. Now. Make me understand why my son and his wife decided to gaslight me and steal my money. He took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so like Gerald's that it made my heart ache despite everything. I wasn't supposed to be like this, he began. It started small, just a few hundred here and there to cover some bills when things got tight. We always meant to pay it back. And the gaslighting, moving my things, making me doubt my memory. Was that just a happy accident? He had the grace to look ashamed. That was Vanessa's idea. She said if you started to question yourself, you'd be less likely to question us when money went missing. And you went along with it, I said, not a question but a statement. I did, he admitted. I'm not proud of it. But we were desperate, Mom. The business was failing. Vanessa's real estate work had dried up with the market downturn. We were underwater on the mortgage, credit card debt up to our eyeballs. And Lily's tuition. He trailed off, looking miserable. All things you could have explained to me, I pointed out. I would have helped if you'd been honest. Would you? You turned us down 2 years ago when we asked for that loan. Because you weren't honest about what it was for, I countered. You talked about business expansion, not debt. I'm your mother, Michael. I've always been there for you. But I won't be manipulated or lied to. He was silent for a long moment, twisting his wedding ring around his finger. There's something else you should know, he finally said, his voice so low I had to lean forward to hear him. Something we didn't tell you. About Vanessa. I waited, a sense of foreboding creeping over me. She has a gambling problem, he said, the words coming out in a rush. Online casinos mostly. It started small, just like everything else. A way to relieve stress, she said. but it got out of control. She's lost. God, I don't even know how much anymore. Tens of thousands at least. I stared at him, letting this new information sink in. And the money you took from me? It went to cover her gambling debts? He nodded, not meeting my eyes. Most of it, yes. The rest went to keeping up appearances, making sure no one suspected how bad things had gotten. Does Lily know about this? About her mother's addiction? No, he said quickly. No one knows. Vanessa would die if it got out. Her family, her friends, her colleagues, they all think, she's this perfect, successful woman. The shame would destroy her. I fought to keep my expression neutral, to not show the turmoil of emotions his revelation had triggered. Anger at the deception, yes, but also a complicated pity. Addiction was a disease, not a moral failing. But the way they'd handled it, the theft, the manipulation, the gaslighting, that was unforgivable. This doesn't change what you did, I said finally. It explains it, perhaps, but it doesn't excuse it. I know, he said, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. I know that, Mom. I didn't know what else to do. I was trying to save my marriage, my family, my business all at once. And I failed at everything. I reached across the table and took his hand, not in forgiveness, not yet, but in acknowledgement of his pain. Vanessa needs help, Michael. Professional help. And so do you. He nodded, tears filling his eyes. I'm starting to see that. As for the money, I continued, my terms haven't changed. 2 weeks, all of it, or we go to the police. Even now? Knowing about Vanessa's problem? Even now, I confirmed. Actions have consequences, Michael. That's how the world works. That's how it has to work. He withdrew his hand, wiping at his eyes. What about Lily? What do we tell her when she comes home? The truth, I said firmly. All of it. No more lies, no more secrets. She deserves that much from all of us. He looked terrified at the prospect, but didn't argue. As he stood to leave, he hesitated, then asked, Will you be there? When we talk to her? I think she might need you. The request surprised me. If she wants me there, yes, I said cautiously. But this is primarily a conversation between the three of you. He nodded, shoulders slumped in defeat, then walked away without another word. Jennifer joined me at the table as soon as he was gone, sliding into his vacated seat. What was that about? She asked, eyeing me closely. You look shaken, I repeated, Michael's revelation about Vanessa's gambling addiction, watching Jennifer's eyes widen with each new detail. That actually explains a lot, she said when I finished. The constant need for more money, the secrecy, the desperation. Yes, I agreed. But it doesn't change what they did. No, she said firmly, it doesn't. And Lily still needs to know. I nodded, suddenly exhausted by it all. She does, but I'm dreading next weekend. This will break her heart. Jennifer reached across the table and squeezed my hand. She's stronger than you think, Mom. We all are. Even Michael, despite his terrible choices. I hope you're right, I said. Because we're all going to need that strength in the days ahead. As we left the coffee shop, I felt a curious mixture of dread and relief. The truth was finally emerging, piece by painful piece. But each revelation seemed to bring new complications, new layers of betrayal and hurt. And Vanessa's addiction cast everything in a different light, not excusing their actions, but contextualizing them in a way I hadn't anticipated. What would happen when Lily arrived? When we all sat down together, the pretenses stripped away, the ugly reality laid bare. Would there be reconciliation, or would the fractures in our family deepen into permanent breaks? I didn't know. All I knew was that I would face it with clear eyes and an open heart. No more gaslighting, no more manipulation, no more lies. Just the truth, however painful it might be. And whatever came next, I would be ready. The week crawled by with excruciating slowness. Jennifer extended her stay, working remotely from my dining room table while I pretended to go about my normal routines, gardening, reading, the occasional lunch with Eleanor. But nothing felt normal. Every phone call made my heart race. Every knock at the door triggered a surge of anxiety. Then, on Thursday evening, 3 days before Lily was due to arrive, I received a text from Vanessa. Not Michael, but Vanessa herself. It was the first direct communication I'd had from her since our confrontation in my living room. Need to see you. Alone. Important. Tomorrow 11 a.m. at Riverfront Park by the old gazebo. I showed it to Jennifer, who immediately shook her head. Absolutely not. She can come here if she wants to talk. She won't, I said, knowing my daughter-in-law's pride, and I want to hear what she has to say. I don't trust her, Jennifer insisted. This whole gambling addiction story could be just another manipulation, another lie to buy sympathy and time. Maybe, I conceded. But I still want to hear her out. I'll meet her at the park. It's public, it's safe, and you can sit nearby, just like at the coffee shop with Michael. Jennifer didn't like it, but she finally agreed. The next morning, we arrived at Riverfront Park 15 minutes early. Jennifer positioned herself on a bench with a clear view of the gazebo, but far enough away that her presence wouldn't be immediately obvious. Vanessa arrived precisely at 11, looking nothing like the polished, confident woman I was used to seeing. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her face free of makeup, her clothing casual to the point of being unkempt. She sat beside me on the gazebo bench without greeting or preamble. "Michael says he told you," she said, her voice flat. "About my problem." "Yes," I replied simply. "He did." She laughed, a short, bitter sound with no humor in it. Problem. Such a tidy little word for something that's destroyed everything. I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. A light breeze rustled the leaves overhead, carrying the distant sound of children playing at the park's playground. "I didn't start gambling to hurt anyone," she said finally. "I just wanted to feel something, anything. The rush, the excitement, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this time I'd win big and all our problems would disappear." "Gambling never solves problems," I said quietly. "It only creates new ones." "Don't you think I know that now?" She snapped, then seemed to catch herself. "Sorry, I'm not good at asking for help, or admitting I'm wrong. I never have been." Another silence stretched between us. In the distance, I could see Jennifer pretending to read a book while keeping a watchful eye on our interaction. "Why did you want to meet?" I asked finally. Vanessa reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope, handing it to me without meeting my eyes. "It's a cashier's check, for $12,000, the rest of what we owe you." I opened the envelope and examined the check. It appeared legitimate, made out to me for exactly the amount they still owed. "Michael doesn't know I'm doing this," she continued, still not looking at me. "He thinks we should wait, try to negotiate some kind of payment plan. But I know you won't agree to that, and you shouldn't have to." I studied her face, trying to discern her true motives. "Where did you get this money, Vanessa?" "I sold my car, and some jewelry, things I never should have bought in the first place. And the gambling?" Her hands twisted together in her lap. "I'm working on it. I started going to GA meetings last week. Found a therapist who specializes in addiction. It's hard, harder than I ever imagined. But I'm trying." I nodded, carefully tucking the check into my purse. "Thank you for returning." The money. It was the right thing to do. Don't, she said sharply. Don't commend me for finally doing the bare minimum of what a decent human being should do. I don't deserve that. I studied her, this woman I'd known for over 20 years, but perhaps never truly understood. What happens now? I asked. With you and Michael? With Lily? She looked out across the park, her profile tense and drawn. I don't know. Michael wants to try to save our marriage, but I'm not sure there's anything left to save. And Lily... Her voice caught. Lily will hate me when she finds out everything. I wouldn't blame her. She won't hate you, I said, surprised to find I believed it. She'll be hurt, disappointed, angry, yes. But hate? No. She loves you too much for that. Vanessa turned to me then, her eyes swimming with tears. Why are you being kind to me? After everything we did to you? I'm not being kind, I clarified. I'm being truthful. There's a difference. She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. We tried to make you think you were losing your mind. We stole from you. We betrayed your trust in the worst possible way. You should hate us. You should be pressing charges, not sitting here talking to me like I'm still family. Is that what you want? I asked. For me to hate you? To have you arrested? I don't know what I want anymore, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Except for the pain to stop. All of it. The constant craving. The shame. The fear. It never stops. Not really. I felt a complicated mixture of emotions. Anger still, yes, but also a reluctant compassion. Addiction was a cruel master, and Vanessa was clearly suffering under its weight. The money was the easy part, I said after a moment. Rebuilding trust, that's going to be much harder. It may not even be possible. I honestly don't know yet. She nodded, accepting this without argument. What will you tell Lily when she comes? The truth, I said simply. The whole truth, no matter how painful. She deserves that from all of us. Vanessa flinched, but didn't disagree. Michael wants you there when we talk to her. I didn't understand why at first, but I think I do now. You're the only honest person left in her life, the only one she can still trust. The irony wasn't lost on me, that my son and his wife had tried to undermine my credibility, only to now need that very credibility to help their daughter through this crisis. If Lily wants me there, I'll be there, I said, echoing what I'd told Michael. But ultimately, this is between the three of you. Vanessa stood, smoothing down her rumpled shirt with trembling hands. I should go. Thank you for meeting me, and for... She trailed off, seemingly at a loss for words. For listening, I supplied. She nodded once, then walked away without looking back, her shoulders hunched as if against a cold wind only she could feel. Jennifer joined me in the gazebo as soon as Vanessa was out of sight. Well, what did she want? I showed her the check. To return the rest of the money, and perhaps to make some kind of peace before Lily arrives. Jennifer examined the check carefully. I'll go to the bank with you right away. Make sure it clears. It will, I said with certainty. Whatever else Vanessa might be, she's not stupid. She knows this is her one chance to start making things right. The check did clear, as I'd predicted. The full $20,000 was now returned. But as I'd told Vanessa, the money was the easy part. The harder question remained. What happens next? Lily's flight was scheduled to arrive Saturday morning. I offered to pick her up, but she declined, saying she wanted to go straight to her parents' house first. I respected her decision but kept my phone close all day, waiting for her call. It came just after 3 in the afternoon. Grandma? Her voice sounded thick as if she'd been crying. Can I come over? I need to see you. Of course, sweetheart. Do you want me to come get you? No, I have Dad's car. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When she arrived, my heart broke at the sight of her. My bright, vibrant granddaughter looked diminished somehow, her eyes red-rimmed, Her normally confident posture collapsed into something fragile and uncertain. "Oh, honey," I said, opening my arms, and she fell into them like she used to as a little girl, sobbing against my shoulder. "It's all true," she choked out between sobs. "Everything. The gambling, the stealing, all of it. They admitted everything." I held her tightly, stroking her hair as I had when she was small and wakened by nightmares. Only this time the nightmare was real, and there would be no easy comfort. "I'm so sorry, Lily," I whispered. "So sorry you had to find out this way." She pulled back slightly, wiping furiously at her tears. "They used me, Grandma. Used my education as an excuse to steal from you, and then they lied to me about it. Made me complicit without my knowledge." Jennifer, who had been giving us space, approached cautiously. "Hey, kiddo," she said softly. "Rough day, huh?" Lily managed a watery smile for her aunt. "The worst." We moved to the living room and Lily curled up on the sofa, clutching a throw pillow to her chest like a shield. "Mom's going to some kind of rehab program," she said, her voice steadier now. 30 days, starting Monday. Dad's going to therapy, too, and they're selling the house. They say they need a fresh start, someplace smaller, more affordable. "How do you feel about all of that?" I asked carefully. She shrugged, looking suddenly much younger than her 19 years. "I don't know. Glad they're getting help, I guess. But also angry. So angry I can barely breathe sometimes." She looked up at me, her eyes fierce despite the tears. "How could they do this to you? To me? To our whole family?" "Addiction makes people do terrible things," Jennifer said gently. "Things they would never do otherwise." "That explains Mom," Lily said. "But what about Dad? What's his excuse?" I sighed, sitting down beside her. "Fear, probably. Fear of losing your mother, your home, his business. Fear makes people desperate, and desperate people make bad choices." "Like trying to convince you that you were going senile?" Lily's voice hardened. "That wasn't just a bad choice, Grandma. That was cruel, deliberate." "Yes," I agreed. "It was. And I'm still angry about it. I may always be to some degree, but I'm trying to separate the actions from the people, to remember that your father is more than his worst decisions." "I don't know if I can do that," Lily admitted. "Not yet, anyway." "You don't have to," Jennifer assured her. "You're allowed to be angry, hurt, disappointed. You're allowed to take all the time you need to process this." Lily nodded, then turned to me with a determined expression. "I'm not going back to Northwestern. Not right away, at least. I've already filed for a leave of absence. I want to transfer somewhere closer to home. To you." I blinked in surprise. "Lily, no. Northwestern was your dream school. You worked so hard to get in." "It doesn't matter," she said firmly. "I can't go back there knowing that every penny of my tuition was tainted. Besides, I need to be here, to make sure nothing like this ever happens to you again." "That's not your responsibility," I said gently. "It is," she insisted. "You've always been there for me, Grandma. Always. Now it's my turn to be there for you." My eyes filled with tears at her fierce protectiveness. "Oh, Lily, you're so like your grandfather sometimes it takes my breath away." She managed a small smile at that. "Is that a good thing?" "The best," I assured her. Gerald was the strongest, most loyal person I've ever known. We spent the rest of the afternoon and evening talking, reminiscing, sometimes crying, occasionally even laughing. Jennifer ordered pizza, and we ate it in the living room like we used to on movie nights when the children were small. It wasn't healing, not exactly, but it was connecting, reaffirming the bonds that remained unbroken despite everything. Later, after Lily had gone to sleep in the guest room down the hall, Jennifer joined me on the back porch, where I was watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. "What are you thinking?" she asked, settling into the chair beside mine. "That family is the most complicated thing in the world," I replied. "Capable of causing the deepest wounds and the greatest joys, sometimes simultaneously." She nodded, understanding. Without needing further explanation. "What happens now, Mom? With Michael and Vanessa? With all of us?" I sighed, the weight of the question settling over me like a heavy blanket. "I don't know exactly. The money is returned, yes, but the trust is shattered. That can't be fixed with a cashier's check or a tearful apology." "No," she agreed. "It can't. But I think there's a path forward, a difficult one, with no guarantees. But if they're truly committed to change, if Michael can acknowledge the full extent of what he did, if Vanessa can overcome her addiction, maybe someday we can find a new normal. And if they can't? If they slip back into old patterns?" Turned to look at her, my brilliant daughter who always saw every angle, every possibility. "Then I'll be ready. No more gaslighting, no more manipulation, no more doubt." They thought I was senile. Too confused to notice what they were doing. Too weak to fight back. They were wrong once. They won't get a second chance to make the same mistake. Jennifer reached over and took my hand, squeezing it tightly. "I'm proud of you, Mom. So proud." "I'm proud of us," I corrected. "All of us who stood for the truth. No matter how painful. You, me, Lily, even Eleanor with her birdwatching camera." I smiled at the memory. We're stronger than they thought. The next morning, as Jennifer, Lily, and I sat around the breakfast table planning the day ahead, my phone rang. It was Michael. "Mom," he said, his voice rough as if he hadn't slept. "I know I have no right to ask this, but could we all meet? Today? At your house? There are things I need to say to all of you. Together." I looked at Jennifer and Lily, both watching me, expectantly. "Let me check with everyone and call you back," I said, then hung up and explained the request. "I don't want to see him," Lily said immediately, then hesitated. "But I probably should, shouldn't I?" "Only if you're ready," I said. "There's no rush." She squared her shoulders, a gesture so like Gerald's that it made my heart ache. "No, let's do it. All of us together. Let him say whatever he needs to say." Jennifer nodded in agreement. "I think it's time." I called Michael back. "Come at noon," I said simply. "Just you, not Vanessa. She has her own amends to make, but that's for another day." "Thank you," he whispered, and I could hear genuine gratitude in his voice. As I hung up, I felt a curious sense of peace settling over me. Not forgiveness, not yet. That would take time, if it came at all. But acceptance, perhaps. Acceptance that what had happened, that it had changed us all, and that we would never be the same family we were before. But maybe, just maybe, we could be something new. Something stronger, more honest, more resilient. A family built on truth rather than convenience, on genuine connection rather than obligation. They had thought I was senile, a convenient fiction to justify their betrayal. But in exposing their lies, I had not only reclaimed my dignity, but also cleared the path for something unexpected, the possibility of redemption. Not the easy kind that comes with tearful apologies and Hollywood embraces, but the hard-won kind that requires ongoing work, unflinching honesty, and the courage to face the darkest parts of ourselves. As noon approached, I set out coffee cups and arranged chairs in the living room, preparing for whatever would come next. The future was uncertain, the wounds still fresh, the path ahead unclear. But one thing was certain. I would face it clear-eyed and steadfast, with the truth as my compass and the love of those who had stood by me as my strength. No more gaslighting. No more manipulation, no more fear, just the truth, in all its painful, glorious complexity. And whatever came after, I would be ready. At precisely noon, the doorbell rang. I smoothed my hands over my slacks, took a deep breath, and went to answer it. Michael stood on the porch, holding a thick manila envelope and looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. "Come in," I said, stepping aside to let him enter. He hesitated at the threshold, his eyes darting past me to where Jennifer and Lily sat in the living room. "Thank you for agreeing to this," he said quietly. "I know I don't deserve it." I merely nodded and led him inside. The atmosphere was tense, almost electric with unspoken emotions. Lily stiffened visibly when her father entered, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair. Jennifer's expression remained carefully neutral, but I could see the wariness in her eyes. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the empty chair we'd positioned across from the three of us. The arrangement wasn't accidental, Michael facing the united front of the women he had wronged. He sat, placing the envelope on the coffee table between us. No one spoke. The clock on the mantel ticked loudly in the silence. "I want to start by saying I know that nothing I say today can undo what I've done," Michael finally began, his voice steadier than I'd expected. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm not even sure I deserve it. I'm here because I owe all of you the truth. The complete truth." Lily shifted in her seat, but remained silent, watching her father with an unreadable expression. "I've spent the past few days trying to understand why I did what I did," Michael continued. "Why I allowed myself to betray the people I love most in the world. I could blame desperation. I could blame fear. I could blame Vanessa's addiction or financial pressure or a million other things. But the truth is simpler and uglier than that." Looked directly at me, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I did it because I was weak. Because it was easier to lie than to face my failures. Because somewhere along the way, I lost sight of the values you taught me, Mom. Honesty, integrity, accountability." I felt a lump forming in my throat but said nothing, letting him continue. "Vanessa's gambling was real. That part wasn't a lie. But I knew about it long before we ever took a penny from you, Mom. I knew and I enabled it. I covered for her. I made excuses. I drained our savings and took out loans to pay her debts. And when all that ran out, instead of getting her help, instead of facing the truth, I turned to you. Not for support or guidance, but for money. Money I took without permission. Money I stole." Lily made a small, pained sound, and Jennifer reached over to squeeze her hand. "But the worst part wasn't the theft," Michael said, his voice dropping. "It was what came after. The decision to make you doubt yourself, Mom. To make you believe you were losing your memory, your grip on reality. That was calculated. That was cruel, and I can never, ever make that right." A tear slipped down my cheek, but I made no move to wipe it away. The rawness of his confession had stripped away some of my protective anger, leaving only a deep, aching sadness. "I've hurt all of you," Michael continued, addressing all three of us now. "Mom, I betrayed your trust in the most fundamental way possible. Jennifer, I dragged you into a mess of my own making, forcing you to protect Mom from me, her own son. And Lily," his voice cracked. "Lily, I used your education as an excuse to steal. I lied to you about where the money was coming from. I made you an unwitting accomplice. There's no apology big enough for that." Lily was crying openly now, silent tears streaming down her face, but her posture remained rigid, unforgiving. "What I did was criminal," Michael said. "It was elder abuse. It was fraud. It was gaslighting. And if you want to press charges, Mom, I understand. I won't fight it. I deserve whatever consequences come my way." He reached for the manila envelope on the table. "Inside here is a full accounting of every penny I took from you. When, how much, what it was used for. I've also included documentation of all of Vanessa's gambling losses over the past 3 years. Not as an excuse, but as an explanation." And there's something else. He pulled out a document and handed it to me. A notarized statement confessing to everything. If you decide to go to the police, you'll have this as evidence. I took the document with trembling hands, scanning the text but unable to fully process it through the emotion clouding my mind. I've also included paperwork showing that Vanessa and I have listed our house for sale, Michael continued. We've already received an offer. Once it closes, the money will go to paying off our debts. We're moving into a small apartment next month. No more pretending to be something we're not. No more living beyond our means. Jennifer leaned forward, speaking for the first time. And Vanessa? Where is she in all this? At her first intensive therapy session, Michael replied. She starts inpatient treatment on Monday. 30 days minimum. It's been a wake-up call for both of us. We've been living a lie for so long, I'm not sure we even recognize the truth anymore. I finally found my voice. Why now, Michael? Why this complete confession? He looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. Because Lily deserves parents she can respect again someday. Because you deserve a son who owns up to his mistakes. Because I can't live with myself anymore if I don't at least try to make amends. He paused. And because when Vanessa came home after meeting you at the park, she said something that hit me like a thunderbolt. She said, "Your mother is still the strongest person I know, even after everything we did to her." The room fell silent again. The air felt thick with emotion, anger, pain, grief, and perhaps, lurking beneath it all, the faintest glimmer of something that might someday become healing. Lily finally spoke, her voice quiet but firm. I'm moving in with Grandma, for a while at least. I've already talked to the community college about transferring my credits. Michael nodded, not arguing. I think that's a good idea. For both of you. I'm not doing it for you, Lily said sharply. Or to make you feel better about what you did. I know, he said simply. You're doing it because you love your grandmother, because you want to protect her, and because you need some distance from your mother and me right now. I understand, Lily. I really do. Do you? She challenged, a flash of Gerald's fire in her eyes. Do you understand what it's like to learn that your entire life has been built on lies? That the parents you thought you knew are criminals? Michael flinched, but didn't look away from his daughter's accusation. No, he admitted. I don't know what that feels like, and I'm so sorry you have to. Jennifer cleared her throat. What happens now, Michael? After the house is sold? After Vanessa completes treatment? What's the long-term plan? Rebuilding, he said after a moment. Starting over. I've taken a second job to help pay down our debts faster. Vanessa will need ongoing treatment, support groups. We both will. And as for our family, he looked around at all of us. That's not up to me. I've destroyed the trust that held us together. I can only hope that someday, with time and consistent effort, I might earn back some small measure of it. I studied my son's face, the face I'd loved since the moment the nurse placed him in my arms 44 years ago. I saw genuine remorse there, real pain, a man finally facing the consequences of his actions. But I also saw something else. Resolve. Determination. The first tentative steps toward redemption. I won't press charges, I said finally. The money has been returned. The gaslighting has stopped, and you're taking responsibility for your actions. That's what I wanted from the beginning. Mom, are you sure? Jennifer asked, concerned. What they did was still criminal. I'm sure, I said firmly. The legal system isn't equipped to heal families. Only we can do that, in our own time, in our own way. Michael released a shaky breath. Thank you, he whispered. I don't deserve your mercy. It's not mercy, I corrected. It's pragmatism. Sending you to jail won't undo the hurt. It won't help Vanessa recover from her addiction. It won't give Lily back the parents she thought she had. I leaned forward, looking him directly in the eye. But don't mistake this for forgiveness, Michael. That hasn't happened yet. That may take a very long time, if it happens at all. He nodded, accepting this without argument. I understand. And there will be boundaries, I continued. Clear ones. You don't get access to my financial information anymore. You don't have a key to my house. You don't make decisions for me or about me without my explicit consent. Of course, he agreed quickly. And there's one more thing. I glanced at Lily, who gave me a small nod of encouragement. I want you to speak to my lawyer about setting up a proper trust for Lily's education. Not from your money, you need that. To rebuild your lives, but from mine. Properly documented, transparent, with Jennifer as co-trustee. Michael looked surprised but nodded. I'll do that. I'm not doing this for you, I said, echoing Lily's earlier words. I'm doing it for her, because she deserves to graduate without the shadow of stolen money hanging over her accomplishments. She does, he agreed softly. She deserves so much. Better than what we've given her. The conversation continued for another hour, painful, honest, necessary. Michael answered every question without evasion, no matter how difficult. He didn't make excuses or attempt to minimize what he'd done. He simply told the truth, again and again, even when that truth painted him in the worst possible light. When he finally left, the three of us sat in silence for several minutes, processing everything we'd heard. Do you believe him? Jennifer asked eventually. About making amends, starting over? I considered the question carefully. I believe he means it today. Whether he'll still mean it next month, next year, that remains to be seen. Actions, not words, Lily murmured, something I'd said to her many times throughout her childhood. Exactly, I said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. We'll watch what he does, not just listen to what he says. Later that evening, after Jennifer had gone to make dinner arrangements and Lily had gone upstairs to call her university advisors about her leave of absence, I sat alone in my study, surrounded by familiar books and photographs. I picked up a picture of Michael at his college. Graduation, his face young and full of promise, Gerald and me standing proudly on either side of him. So much had changed since that day. So much lost. So much broken. And yet, there was something unexpectedly freeing about having all the secrets exposed, all the lies dragged into the light. No more wondering if I was losing my mind. No more doubting my own memory. No more manipulation. Phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. How did it go today? Need me to come over with emergency chocolate? I smiled and texted back. Rain check on the chocolate. Exhausted, but okay. Truth finally told. All of it. Her response came quickly. Proud of you, warrior. Call if you need anything. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair, suddenly aware of the bone-deep fatigue that had settled into my body. The confrontations, the revelations, the emotional turmoil of the past weeks, it had taken a toll. But beneath the exhaustion, I felt something else stirring, something that felt surprisingly like hope. Not for an immediate reconciliation, that would be naive. Not for a quick return to the way things were, that was impossible. But hope for something new, something honest, something real. The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. It was nearly 8 o'clock, too late for casual visitors. I checked the new security camera feed on my phone before answering, surprised, to see Vanessa standing on my porch, alone. I opened the door cautiously. Vanessa, this is unexpected. She looked even more worn than she had at the park. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands fidgeted nervously at her sides. I'm sorry to come by so late. I just came from my therapy session, and I needed to see you. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. Jennifer and Lily are here, I warned. I know, she said. Michael told me about the meeting today. That's partly why I'm here. She glanced toward the kitchen where I could hear Jennifer and Lily's voices. Could we talk privately for a moment first? I led her to my study and closed the door, gesturing for her to sit. She perched on the edge of the chair, looking like she might bolt at any moment. What did you want to say, Vanessa? She took a deep breath, her hands twisting together in her lap. My therapist suggested that I need to make direct amends to the people I've hurt, not just by returning money or making promises, but by listening. Really listening to how my actions have affected them. She looked up at me, her eyes filling with tears. I know it's a lot to ask after everything, but I need to hear from you, in your own words, what I did to you, how it made you feel. I need to sit with that, really understand it, if I'm ever going to change. I stared at her, taken aback by the request. It was the last thing I'd expected from my proud, image-conscious daughter-in-law. You want me to tell you how it felt to be gaslighted? To have my own son try to convince me I was losing my mind? She flinched but nodded. Yes, if you're willing, if it's not too much to ask. I sat down across from her, considering her request. There was vulnerability in it, yes, but also courage. The courage to face the consequences of her actions without flinching away. All right, I said finally. I'll tell you. But I need you to really hear me, Vanessa. Not just listen to check a box on some recovery program worksheet. I will, she promised. I'm here to listen. Truly listen. I took a deep breath, searching for the words to describe the indescribable, the terror of doubting your own mind. The betrayal of discovering it was all an elaborate lie. The humiliation of realizing how thoroughly you'd been manipulated by the people you trusted most. And as I began to speak, I saw something change in Vanessa's eyes. Something that looked, for the first time, like genuine understanding. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a beginning, a step toward something real in a relationship that had been built on facades for far too long. And for now, that would have to be enough. The days that followed felt like the slow exhale after holding your breath underwater for too long. Jennifer returned to Seattle with promises to come back soon and check on us. Lily moved into the guest room, transforming it with her textbooks and laptop, bringing a youthful energy to my quiet house that I hadn't realized how much I'd missed. Vanessa entered her rehab program as scheduled. Michael called once a week with updates, his voice carefully neutral, respectful of the boundaries I'd established. Their house sold quickly, the real estate market was hot, and they'd priced it aggressively to ensure a fast sale. They moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment across town, downsizing their life in every conceivable way. On the surface, it seemed like everything was proceeding exactly as promised. The stolen money had been returned, the gaslighting had stopped. The truth had been told. Justice, in its own way, had been served. But beneath that surface, aftershocks continued to ripple through our family. Lily threw herself into her community college classes with fierce determination, but I often heard her crying softly in her room late at night. When I mentioned Michael or Vanessa, her expression would harden, her responses becoming clipped and terse. The wound was still too fresh. The betrayal too profound. And for me? I found myself jumping at unexpected sounds, double-checking the locks before bed, startling awake from dreams where I was lost in my own home, unable to trust what I saw or remembered. The psychological effects of being gaslighted lingered, even after the gaslighting itself had stopped. It takes time. My therapist, yes, I'd started seeing one, told me during our 3rd session. What you experienced was a profound violation of trust. Your brain is still processing that trauma. I thought I'd feel better by now, I admitted. The money's back. They've admitted what they did. They're getting help. Shouldn't that be enough? She smiled gently. Healing isn't linear, Eleanor. It's not a checklist. And forgiveness, if that's something you eventually want, isn't an event. It's a process. Not sure I'll ever get there, I confessed. To forgiveness, I mean. And that's okay too, she assured me. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not something you owe to others. It happens in its own time, if it happens at all. I thought about that conversation often in the weeks that followed. About forgiveness as a gift to myself, not an obligation to Michael and Vanessa. About the difference between forgetting and moving forward. About the possibility of building something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. 1 month after Vanessa entered rehab, I received a call from her counselor. Mrs. Reynolds, this is Dr. Simmons from Oak Ridge Recovery Center. Vanessa has requested a family session as part of her treatment plan, and she'd like you to participate. This is completely voluntary on your part, of course. I hesitated, my grip tightening on the phone. What would this involve? It's a structured session with a trained therapist, myself or one of my colleagues. Vanessa would have the opportunity to make amends directly, and you would have the chance to express your feelings in a safe, moderated environment. Again, this is entirely your choice. Would Michael be there? Yes, he would. And we've extended the invitation to Lily as well, though she hasn't responded yet. I thought about it for a long moment. When? This Saturday at 2 p.m., if that works. For you. I'll be there, I said finally, but I can't speak for Lily. That's her decision to make. That evening, I broached the subject with Lily as we prepared dinner together. Our new nightly ritual. She listened silently, dicing tomatoes with mechanical precision. You don't have to go, I told her. No one would blame you if you're not ready. She set down the knife, her expression thoughtful. Are you going, Grandma? Yes, I said. I think I need to, for my own healing process, if nothing else. She nodded slowly. Then I'll go too. Lily. No, I mean it, she interrupted. If you can face them, so can I. Besides, she hesitated. I need to see Mom. See if she's really changing or if this is just another act. I touched her arm gently. It might be painful. Everything about this is painful, she replied with a maturity beyond her years. But we can't hide from it forever. Saturday. Arrived with an unseasonable chill in the air. Lily and I drove to the rehabilitation center together, both of us unusually quiet. The facility itself was surprisingly pleasant, more like a retreat center than a hospital, with gardens and walking paths surrounding the main building. Dr. Simmons met us in the lobby, a tall woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Thank you both for coming, she said, shaking our hands. This is an important step in Vanessa's recovery process, and your willingness to participate speaks volumes. She led us to a comfortable room with a circular arrangement of chairs. Michael was already there, looking nervous but composed in a simple button-down shirt and khakis, a far cry from the expensive suits he used to favor. He stood when we entered but didn't approach, seeming to understand instinctively that we needed space. Vanessa will join us in a moment, Dr. Simmons explained, gesturing for us to sit. First, I'd like to go over some ground rules for this session. Everyone will have a chance to speak without interruption. We'll focus on using I statements rather than accusations. And anyone can request a break at any time if things become too intense. Does that sound reasonable to everyone? We all nodded. Lily sat stiffly beside me, her back straight, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Michael kept glancing at her, his expression a mixture of longing and regret. The door opened, and Vanessa entered. I barely recognized her. Gone was the perfectly styled hair, the immaculate makeup, the designer clothes. This Vanessa wore simple jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face clean and unadorned. She looked younger somehow, more vulnerable, but also more present, more real than I'd ever seen her. She took the empty seat beside Dr. Simmons, her eyes moving hesitantly between the three of us. Thank you for coming, she said softly. I know it couldn't have been an easy decision, Dr. Simmons nodded encouragingly. Vanessa, would you like to begin by explaining why you wanted this session? Vanessa took a deep breath. I'm here because I need to take responsibility, real responsibility, for the harm I've caused. She looked directly at me. Eleanor, when I came to your house that night, you shared how our actions made you feel. It was devastating to hear. But it was also the most honest conversation we've ever had. She turned to Lily. And Lily, I've never given you that same opportunity. I've never really listened to how my addiction, my choices, my lies have affected you. I want to do that today, if you're willing to share. Lily's expression remained guarded. Why now? Why should I believe anything has changed? It was a fair question, direct and unsparing. The old Vanessa would have bristled at such a challenge, deflected with a cutting remark, or dismissed it entirely. But this Vanessa nodded, slowly accepting the question. You have no reason to believe me, she acknowledged. I've been lying to you, to all of you, for years, about the gambling, about our finances, about who I really am. She paused. I could tell you I've changed because I've been sober for 32 days, because I've been doing intensive therapy, because I've finally faced the damage I've caused. But words are just words. I know that now. She gestured around the room. This isn't about convincing you to forgive me or to trust me again. This is about me finally telling the truth and listening, really listening, to the impact of my actions. This is about me taking the first step toward becoming someone worthy of your trust someday, even if that day never comes. The room fell. Silent. Dr. Simmons looked at me. Eleanor, would you like to respond? I studied Vanessa's face, looking for signs of the manipulation, the calculation I'd grown to expect from her. But I saw only raw vulnerability and what appeared to be genuine remorse. I believe you mean what you're saying, I said finally. Right. Now, in this moment, I believe you're sincere. But addiction is powerful. So is the pull of old habits, old patterns. I've seen too many recovery stories end in relapse to fully trust that this time will be different. Vanessa nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. That's fair, more than fair. But, I continued, I am willing to listen, to participate in this process, because despite everything, we're still family. And I want to believe healing is possible, even if the road is long and uncertain. Dr. Simmons turned to Lily. And you? Lily, what are your thoughts at this point? Lily sat silent for a long moment, her face a carefully controlled mask. Then, unexpectedly, she began to cry. Not the quiet tears I'd heard from her room at night, but deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from the very core of her being. Michael half rose from his chair, his paternal instincts clearly urging him to go to her, but Dr. Simmons gently motioned for him to remain seated. This was Lily's moment, her pain to express in her own way. I trusted you, Lily finally managed, looking between her parents. Both of you, completely. I was so proud of you. Dad with his successful business, Mom with her real estate career. I bragged about you to my friends. She wiped angrily at her tears. And all of it was a lie. All of it. You weren't successful. You were drowning in debt. You weren't the perfect parents I thought you were. You were thieves, liars. Her voice broke. And the worst part? You used me. Used my education as your excuse. Made me complicit in your crime without my knowledge or consent. Vanessa flinched as if physically struck. Michael stared at the floor, unable to meet his daughter's accusing gaze. I can't even trust my own memories anymore, Lily continued, her voice steadying. Was that family vacation to Florida paid for with stolen money? My 16th birthday party? My prom dress? How much of my life has been funded by crime? The questions hung in the air, unanswerable and devastating in their simplicity. Dr. Simmons waited a moment before gently prompting, Michael? Vanessa? Would either of you like to respond to what Lily has shared? Michael cleared his throat. The Florida trip was legitimate, he said quietly. So was your birthday party. Those were before things got really bad. But the prom dress? He trailed off, unable to continue. The prom dress was during my worst period of gambling, Vanessa finished for him. We were already in financial trouble then, already taking money from your grandmother. She met Lily's gaze directly. There's no excuse for that. None. We used your milestone moments to justify our crimes. We told ourselves we were doing it. For you. But that was just another lie. The worst kind of lie, because it was one we told ourselves. Lily absorbed this, her expression unreadable. How am I supposed to move forward from this? How do I ever trust either of you again? I don't. No, Vanessa admitted. I really don't. All I can offer is that I'm trying, truly trying, to become someone worthy of your trust again. Someone who tells the truth, no matter how painful. Someone who takes responsibility for her actions instead of hiding behind excuses. The same goes for me, Michael added. I know we've broken something precious, Lily, something that may never be fully repaired. But if you're willing to give us the chance, we want to show you, with actions, not just words, that we can change, that we are changing. Dr. Simmons nodded encouragingly. This is good, important work you're all doing here. Vanessa, would you like to share more specifically about your recovery process? What you've learned about your addiction and the steps you're taking to address it? For the next hour, the conversation continued. Painful, honest, necessary. Vanessa explained her gambling addiction in detail, how it had started as a way to escape the pressure of maintaining their image-conscious lifestyle, then spiraled out of control until it consumed everything. Michael talked about his own enabling behavior, his fear of confronting the truth, his misguided attempts to fix everything without addressing the real problems. Throughout it all, Dr. Simmons guided the discussion with gentle but firm authority, ensuring everyone had space to speak their truth without the conversation devolving into accusations or defensiveness. As the session drew to a close, she addressed all of us. This is just the beginning of what will likely be a long, complex, healing process. There will be setbacks. There will be moments of doubt. But what I've seen today gives me hope that, with continued work and commitment from everyone, genuine healing is possible. She turned to me. Eleanor, is there anything else you'd like to say before we end today's session? I looked at Michael and Vanessa, two people I'd once trusted implicitly, who had betrayed that trust in the most painful way possible, but also two people who were visibly, palpably different from the last time I'd seen them. Humbled, honest, present in a way they hadn't been before. I want to believe people can change, I said finally. I spent 40 years teaching high school students, watching them make mistakes, learn from them, grow. I've seen transformation happen in the most unlikely places. So, yes, I'm willing to keep showing up for these conversations, keep doing this work together, as long as the commitment to honesty remains absolute. Vanessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered, for giving us this chance, for being here today. Michael looked at Lily. And you, sweetheart? Are you willing to keep trying too? It's completely okay if you're not ready. Lily was quiet for a long moment. I'll come to the sessions, she said finally. I'll listen, I'll participate, but I'm not moving back home yet. I'm not ready for that. We understand, Michael said quickly. We'll respect whatever boundaries you need to set. As we prepared to leave, Vanessa approached me hesitantly. There's something I've been wanting to give you, she said, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a small velvet pouch. I found these when we were packing up the house. She tipped the contents into my palm, my pearl earrings, the ones Gerald had given me for our 20th anniversary, which had mysteriously disappeared at the beginning of their gaslighting campaign. I took them, she admitted, to make you doubt yourself. I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I closed my fingers around the pearls, feeling their smooth, cool weight against my skin. Such a small thing, and yet the gesture of returning them felt unexpectedly significant. Thank you for giving them back, I said simply. Outside in the parking lot, Lily was unusually quiet as we walked to the car. You okay? I asked, unlocking the doors. She shook her head, not in negation, but as if to clear it. I don't know what to feel, she admitted. Part of me wants to believe they're really changing. The other part is afraid to hope, afraid of being hurt again. That's completely understandable, I said, starting the engine. Trust is rebuilt slowly, Lily. One honest conversation, one kept promise at a time. She nodded, looking out the window, as we drove away from the rehabilitation center. Do you think they can do it? Really change, I mean? I considered the question carefully, thinking of the visible differences I'd seen in both Michael and Vanessa today. The absence of defenses. The willingness to hear painful truths without deflecting. The lack of the performative polish that had characterized their interactions for so long. I think they're trying, I said finally. Really trying, perhaps for the first time. Whether they can maintain it long term, that remains to be seen. But today was a good start. Lily reached over and squeezed my hand, a gesture so reminiscent of her grandfather that it made my heart ache. I'm glad you're my grandmother, she said softly. I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you. We're getting through it together, I corrected gently. One day at a time. As we turned onto my street, our street now, with Lily living under my roof, I felt a curious lightness in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Not complete healing. Certainly, but perhaps the beginning of something new, something honest, something real. They had thought I was senile, a convenient fiction to justify their betrayal. But in standing firm, in refusing to doubt myself, I had not only exposed their lies, but perhaps set all of us on a path toward something unexpected. Authentic connection, built on truth rather than convenience or appearance. It wouldn't be easy. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its setbacks and challenges. But for the first time since this ordeal began, I felt genuinely hopeful that our family might eventually emerge stronger, more honest, more resilient than before. And that, I realized as we pulled into the driveway of the home I'd once feared losing, was a gift I hadn't dared to hope for. 6 months passed. Seasons changed, leaves fell, and the first dusting of winter snow transformed the landscape. Outside my window. Inside, other transformations were taking place, slower, less visible, but no less significant. Lily completed her first semester at the community college with straight A's and had already been accepted to transfer to the state university for the following fall. She still lived with me, though she'd begun spending occasional weekends at Michael and Vanessa's apartment, tentative steps toward rebuilding that relationship. Vanessa had completed her rehabilitation program and continued, with outpatient therapy and regular Gamblers Anonymous meetings. Michael had taken a second job to accelerate their debt repayment, working evenings and weekends with a dedication that surprised everyone, including himself. The family therapy sessions continued, sometimes difficult, sometimes healing, always honest. We no longer danced around uncomfortable truths or maintained polite fictions. When there were setbacks, and there were several, we addressed them directly, without the evasions that had poisoned our relationships before. You look better, Eleanor told me over coffee one crisp December morning. More like yourself, I smiled, warming my hands around the mug. I feel more like myself, like I've reclaimed something I didn't even realize I'd lost. Your confidence, she said. your certainty in your own reality. Yes, I agreed. That's exactly it. Eleanor had been my rock throughout this ordeal, from lending me her camera to check my disappearing possessions, to standing by me when the truth finally emerged. Now, as we sat in my sunlit kitchen watching cardinals flit among the bare branches outside, I felt a profound gratitude for her steadfast friendship. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" she asked. I nodded, though my stomach tightened slightly at the thought. As ready as I'll ever be. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve, the first time since the crisis that our entire family would gather in my home. Jennifer and her family were flying in from Seattle. Michael, Vanessa, and Lily would all be there. We'd agreed months ago to try for a normal holiday, though normal had taken on an entirely new meaning for all of us. "It won't be perfect," Eleanor warned. "There will be awkward moments, maybe even painful ones." "I know," I said. "But it's time. We've all been doing the work. We've all been showing up, being honest, trying to rebuild. That deserves to be acknowledged." "You're a better person than I am," Eleanor said, only half joking. "I'm not sure I could have found my way back to any kind of relationship with them after what they did." I considered this as I sipped my coffee. It's not about being better. It's about choosing what brings more peace in the long run. For me, that meant finding a path toward some kind of reconciliation, however imperfect. "And have you?" she asked. "Found peace with it all?" I gazed out the window, watching the birds dart against the winter sky. "Most days," I said. "Not every day, but most." The next evening, my home filled with the sounds of family, real family, not the hollow performance of it we'd maintained for so long. Jennifer's boys raced through the house with the exuberance only preteens can muster. Dave, Jennifer's husband, helped Michael set up the extra tables we'd need for dinner. Lily and Jennifer worked side by side in the kitchen, their laughter drifting down the hallway. Vanessa approached me as I arranged a centerpiece of holly and pine boughs on the dining room table. "Can I help?" she asked, her voice still carrying that note of careful deference that had replaced her former arrogance. "Sure," I said, handing her a length of ribbon. "Hold this while I tie it." We worked together in companionable silence for a few minutes. She looked better than she had at the rehabilitation center, healthier, more present, though the designer clothes and perfect makeup remained a thing of the past. This Vanessa dressed simply, wore minimal cosmetics, and seemed far more comfortable in her own skin. "Thank you for hosting this," she said as we finished with the centerpiece. "I know it couldn't have been an easy decision." "It felt right," I replied simply. "It's been a long, difficult year for all of us. Ending it together seemed necessary, somehow." She nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying directly, that while progress had been made, work remained, that gatherings like this were part of the healing process, awkwardness and all. "Eleanor," she said hesitantly, "I've been wanting to tell you something. I got a job, a real one, not real estate. I'm working as an administrative assistant at the community college where Lily's been studying." I raised my eyebrows, genuinely surprised. Vanessa had always been so status-conscious, so concerned with appearances. An administrative role would have been unthinkable to the woman she'd been before. "It's entry-level," she continued, correctly reading my expression. "But it's honest work, steady income, benefits, and it keeps me accountable. Regular hours, regular colleagues, no hiding or pretending to be something I'm not. I'm proud of you," I said, and meant it. "That's a significant step." Her eyes welled with tears, another change from the woman who'd once kept her emotions tightly controlled. "That means more than you know," she whispered. Dinner that evening wasn't perfect. There were moments of tension, flashes of old pain bubbling to the surface. Michael grew defensive when Jennifer questioned some detail of their financial recovery plan. Lily withdrew into silence during a discussion of summer plans. Vanessa excused herself briefly when the conversation turned to holiday shopping, the stress of gift-giving clearly triggering for her still recovering addiction. But there were good moments too, genuine ones. Jennifer's boys proudly showing their grandmother the science project they'd been working on. Michael laughing unreservedly at one of Dave's terrible jokes. Lily reaching for her mother's hand under the table during a difficult moment, a gesture of support I wasn't meant to see but did. After dessert, as everyone moved to the living room, for coffee, Michael pulled me aside. "I have something for you, Mom," he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small wrapped package. "It's not much, but—" I unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a key, unmistakably a house key, but not one I recognized. "What's this?" I asked. "The key to our new place," he explained. "We're moving again after the first of the year. It's a small house, nothing fancy, but it's in a good neighborhood, close to both your place and Lily's university." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "We want you to have a key, not because we expect you to use it regularly, but because we want you to know you're always welcome. That there are no more locked doors between us, literally or figuratively." I turned the key over in my palm, feeling its weight, understanding the symbolism behind the gesture. "Thank you," I said simply. "That means a lot." He hesitated, then added, "There's something else. The company's doing better now, not great, but stable, and I've been setting aside a little each month. It's not much yet, but eventually I want to pay back everything. Not just the money we took, but all of it. What you spent. On Lily's education, what you've lost in potential interest. Everything." "Michael, that's not necessary," I began, but he shook his head firmly. "It is necessary. For me. For my own healing." He met my gaze directly. No evasion, no manipulation. "I need to make this right in every way possible, even if it takes years." I studied my son's face, the new lines around his eyes, the gray beginning to show at his temples, but also the clarity in his expression, the steadiness that had replaced his former desperation. "I'm proud of you," I told him. The same words I'd said to Vanessa earlier, and just as sincerely meant. Not because you've fixed everything, not because you're perfect, but because you're trying, genuinely trying, to be better. His eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw the little boy he'd once been, the child who'd tried so hard to please, to succeed, to be enough. Somewhere along the way, that child had gotten lost in the pressures of adulthood, in the pursuit of status and appearance, in the desperate attempt to maintain an unsustainable lifestyle. But now, perhaps, he was finding his way back to something authentic, something true. The evening wound down slowly, naturally. Dave and Jennifer gathered their sleepy boys for the drive back to their hotel. Lily decided to spend the night at her parents' apartment, a choice that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. Hugs were exchanged, genuine if still somewhat tentative. After everyone had gone, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by the echoes of family, the empty cups, the lingering scents of pine and cinnamon, the faint impressions on the sofa, cushions where loved ones had sat. On the mantel stood a photograph taken years ago, Gerald, the children, and me on a long-ago summer vacation. Beside it now stood a new one, taken just tonight by Jennifer's eldest son, all of us around the dinner table, faces showing varying degrees of happiness, tension, hope, uncertainty. Not a perfect picture, but a truthful one. They had thought I was senile, a convenient fiction to justify their betrayal. But in standing firm, in refusing to doubt myself, I had not only exposed their lies, but set all of us on a path towards something I hadn't dared to hope for. Authentic. Family bonds based on truth rather than convenience or appearance. The journey wasn't over. There would be more difficult conversations, more setbacks, more moments of doubt. Trust, once broken, rebuilds itself molecule by molecule, not in grand, sweeping gestures. But tonight, sitting in the quiet of my home with the key to my son's new house in my hand and the memories of genuine connection still fresh in my mind, I felt something that had been missing for too long. Peace. Not the false peace of pretense and buried secrets, but the hard-won peace that comes from facing the truth, however painful, and finding a way through it together. They had thought I was senile. They had been wrong about that, and about so many other things. But perhaps in the end, their greatest mistake had been underestimating the power of truth to heal what deception had broken. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. And that, I decided as I finally rose to turn out the lights, was the greatest victory of all. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.